No, Prabhuji.
I'm sure you can hear now.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudhirayat Nashta Prayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhāgavata-sevayā Bhagavata Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtake Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We continue from reading Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23. Hmm, I have it somewhere. Let me check one second. Okay, it's here. Hmm, Okay. Hmm. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 23. Maharaj Pṛthu's going back home. Maitrevacha दृष्ट्वात्मानं प्रवस्यसम् एकदा वैन्यात्मवान् आत्मना वर्धिताशेष स्वानुसर्गप्रजापतिः जगतस्तस्तु सश्चापि वृत्त्यदो धर्मभृक् सतां निष्पादितेश्वरादेशो यदर्थम् इह जग्निवान् आत्मजस्वात्मजान्यस्य विरहादृदतीम् इव प्रजासु विमनश्व एकः सदारो गातवो वनम्. At the last stage of his life, when Maharaj Pṛthu saw himself getting old, that great soul, who was king of the world, divided whatever opulences he had accumulated among all kinds of living entities, moving and non moving. He arranged pensions for everyone according to religious principles, and after executing orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in complete coordination with him, he dedicated his sons unto the earth, which was considered to be his daughter. Then Maharaj Pṛthu left the presence of his citizens, who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king, and went to forest alone with his wife to perform austerities. तत्रापदाभ्यनियमो वैखानसा सुसम्मते आरब्ध उग्रतपसि यथा स्वविजये पुरा. After retiring from family life, Maharaj Pṛthu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. कंदमूलफलाहारः शुष्कपर्णाशनः क्वचित् अबभक्ष कतिचित् पक्षान् वायुभक्षस्ततः परम्. In the Tapovana, Maharaj Pṛthu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees, sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves, and for some weeks he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air. ग्रीष्मे पञ्चतपावीरो वर्षाश्वासारसान्मुनिः आकण्ठमग्नः शिशिरे उदके स्तण्डिलेशयः. Following the principles of forest living and the four footsteps of the great sages and munis, Pṛthu Maharaj accepted five kinds of heating processes during the summer season, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in water up to his neck. He also used to simply lie down on the floor to sleep. तितिक्षुर्यतवाग्दान्ता ऊर्ध्वरेता जितानिलः आरिराध्येषु कृष्णम् अचरत्तप उत्तमम्. Maharaj Pṛthu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life air within his body. All this he did for the satisfaction of Krishna. He had no other purpose. तेन क्रमानुसिद्धेन द्वष्टकर्ममलाशयः प्राणायामैः सन्निरुद्ध षड्वर्गश्चिन्नबन्धनः. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Pṛthu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Sanatkumaro Bhagavan Yad Ahadhyatmikam Param Yogam Tenaiva Purusham Abhajat Purusharshabha. Thus, the best amongst human beings, Maharaj Pṛthu, followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Bhagavad Dharminah Sadhoho Shraddhaya Yatata Sada Bhaktir Bhagavati Brahmani Ananya Vishaya Bhavat. Maharaj Pṛthu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles, 24 hours daily. Thus, his love and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna developed and became unflinching and fixed. तस्यानया भगवतः परिक्रमशुद्धा सत्त्वात्मनस्तद् अनुशंस अनुसंस्मरणानुपूर्त्या ज्ञानं विरक्तिमद् अभून्निशितेन येन छिद्दे चिह्येद Chicheda Samshaya Nijajiva. By regularly discharging devotional service, Pṛthu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and material conception of life. छिन्नान्य धीर अधिगतात्मगतिर्निः निरीहस् तत्तच्यते तत्तत्यजे छिन्नद इदं वयुनेन येन तावन्न योगगतिभिर्यतिरप्रमत्तो यावद्गदाग्रजकसशु रतिं न कुर्यात्. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaj Pṛthu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Being thus able to get all instructions from him, he gave up all other practices of yoga and jnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of yoga and jnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narration about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. एवं सवीरप्रवरः संयोज्यात्मानम् आत्मनि ब्रह्मभूतोद्धृतं काले दृढं काले तत्याज स्वं कलेवरम्. In due course of time, when Pṛthu Maharaj was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus completely situated on the Brahma Bhuta platform, he gave up the material body. सम्पीड्य पायुं पार्ष्णिभ्यां वायुम् उत्सारयाञ्छनैः नाभ्यां कोष्ठेष्व अवस्थाप्य हृदुरः कण्ठ शीर्षणि. When Maharaj Pṛthu practiced a particular yogic sitting posture, he blocked the door of his anus with his ankles, pressed his right and left calves, and gradually raised his life air upward, passing it passing it onto the circle of his navel, up to his heart and throat, and finally pushed it upward to the central position between his two eyebrows. उत्सर्पयन्तु तं मूर्ध्नि क्रमेणावेश्य निःस्पृशः वायुं वायोक्षितौ कायं तेजस्तेजस् अयुयुजत्. In this way, Pṛthu Maharaj gradually raised his air of life up to the hole in his skull, whereupon he lost all desire for material existence. Gradually, he merged his air of life with the totality of air, his body with the totality of earth, and the fire within the body with the totality of fire. कान्याकाशे द्रवं तोये यथा स्थानं विभागशः क्षितिम् अम्बशितत्तेजसि अधो वायो नभस्यमुम् नभस्यमुम्. In this way, according to the different positions of various parts of the body, Pṛthu Maharaj merged the wholes of his senses with the sky, his bodily liquids such as blood and various secretions with the totality of water. He merged earth with water, then water with fire, fire with air, air with sky, and so on. इन्द्रियेषु मनस्तानि तन्मात्रेषु यतोद्भवम् भूतादीनामून्य उत्कृष्य महत्यात्मनि सन्दते. He amalgamated the mind with senses and the senses with the sense objects according to their respective positions, and he also amalgamated the material ego with the total material energy, Mahat Tattva. तं तं सर्वगुणविन्यासं जीवे मायामये न्यदात् तं चानुशयम् आत्मस्थम् असाव अनुशयै पुमान् ज्ञानवैराग्यवीर्येण स्वरूपस्थो जहात् प्रभुः. Pṛthu Maharaj then offered the total designation of living entity unto the supreme controller of illusory energy. Being released from all the designations by which the living entity became entrapped, he became free by knowledge and renunciation and by the spiritual force of his devotional service. In this way, being situated in his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he gave up this body as a Prabhu or controller of the senses. अर्चिर्नाम महाराज्ञे तत्पत्नी अनुगता वनं सुकुमारी अतद अर्हा च यत्पद्भ्याम स्पर्शनम भुवः. The queen, the wife of Pṛthu Maharaj, whose name was Archi, followed her husband into the forest. Since she was a queen, her body was very delicate. Although she did not deserve to live in the forest, she voluntarily touched her lotus feet to the ground. अतीव भर्तृव्रतधर्मनिष्ठया शुश्रूषया चार्हदेह यात्रया नाविन्दतार्तिं परिकर्षितापि सा प्रेयस्करा स्पर्शनमाननिवृत्तिः. Although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archi followed her husband in the regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground and ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves. And because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. Yet, because of the pleasure she derived in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. Hare Krishna. We take the remaining part tomorrow and very quickly go through the wonderful purports for this chapter. Give me 1 second. So, straight away to highlight here, Maitreya is telling to Vidura. Yeah, we are now in the fourth canto. We are no more in the 10th canto where we were relishing the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis, with his cowhead voice and all, Vrindavan Leela, Mathura Leela, all. Yeah, we go back to the fourth canto where we were systematically going in the process of nityaṁ bhāgavata-sevayā. So Maitreya is, yeah, Vidura, when he was in the yatra, when he was in pilgrimage, then he came across Maitreya Rishi and Krishna. Before he left, before he left the world, then he has passed this knowledge to Maitreya Rishi. Yeah. So, and this, whatever Maitreya is received, Vidura is asking interesting questions to also uh, receive from Maitreya Rishi. Yeah, so, in this way, we are now in this. Um, so, at that last stage of his life, when Maharaj Pṛthu saw himself getting old, that great soul, he decided, okay, let me now wind up the material activities, yeah, or routine material dealings or under the varnashrama system of being the king. Then Maharaj Pṛthu left the presence of his citizens who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king. This is very nice to know. It is not that he was kicked out, that because he was unfit. He was very much loved by the citizens and they really wanted to have him. But yeah, in the purport we can see Maharaj Pṛthu was one of the Shakti-avesh avatar of the Supreme Lord, and as such he appeared on the surface of earth to execute the orders of the Lord. What is the orders of the Lord? To retire in time. Yeah, this comes in other purports also. He is always anxious to see that in each and every planet, the living entities are happily living and executing their duties. So, Krishna is either coming in his um, Swarupa or Bhinna, Vibhinnamsha. And there are so many expansions of the Lord, and one is Shakti Avesha Avatar, that his potency is manifesting in the form of a person who is appearing on the earth. So he divided his property among his sons and appointed them to rule the world, and then he went to the forest with his wife. It is significant in this connection that it is said that Maharaj Pṛthu retired alone and at the same time took his wife with him. What does that mean? So he retired alone and he was accompanied by his wife. So the same thing happens. I think in this purport or the next purport, we come across similar examples, a few examples that are given. So according to Vedic principles, when retiring from family life, one can take his wife with him. Uh, for the husband and wife are considered to be one unit. That is the reason. It's not for a facilitating or facilitation, but they are one unit. Thus, they can both combinedly perform austerities for liberation. This is the path that Maharaj Pṛthu, who was an exemplary character, followed. One should not simply remain at home until the time of death, but should separate from family life at a timely moment and prepare himself to go back to Godhead. So this is what here, because the Lord has appeared in the form of Pṛthu Maharaj, so he also wanted to demonstrate that one should really practice it. As a Shakti Avesh incarnation of God who had actually come from Vaikuntha as a representative of Krishna, Maharaj Pṛthu was certain to go back to Godhead. Nonetheless, in order to set an example in all ways, he also underwent severe austerities in Tapovan. So, finally, he went to Tapovan. It was compulsory, in fact, it's said, indeed, it was compulsory for everyone to go to Tapovan to fully accept the shelter of the Supreme Lord. For it is very difficult to retire from family life and at the same time remain at home. It is very difficult. Yeah, we just can look around how so many who have yeah, retired from their maybe material dealings, but they are stuck in a family dealings. Yeah, though they have given up all the work, they have given up the duties, but the attachment doesn't go uh, when one is still at home. That's why it's clearly mentioned here that it is very difficult to retire from family life and at the same time remain at home. One really needs to be very, very focused devotee if this really needs to happen. And then after retiring from family life, Maharaj Prithu strictly followed the regulative principles. Um, and in the purport, it's mentioned as it is necessary for one to become very active in family life. Similarly, after retirement from family life. So, what is the purpose of after retiring from family life? Is it is necessary to control mind and senses. Because if mind and senses are not controlled, we always want to go back to take again um, a suitable shelter in the family life. So we should control mind and senses. This is possible when one engages himself in the fully in the pure one engages fully in the devotional service of the Lord. Hmm? Actually, the whole purpose of Vedic system, the Vedic social order, is to enable one to ultimately retire or return home back to Godhead. It is to enable one to easily retire in the middle of life and engage fully in austerities in order to transcend material sense gratification once and for all. Therefore, Vanaprastha stage of life, I'm really looking forward for Jayadvaita Maharaj book to come. Therefore, it is strongly recommended. Maharaj Prithu followed exactly all the rules of Vanaprastha, which is technically known as Vaikhanasa Ashrama. Vaikhanasa Susammate means under the regulations of Varnashrama, Maharaj Prithu has followed. Hmm? And why did he follow? Because Mahajana Yena Gata Sa Pantaha. One should follow in the footsteps of the great personalities. So he's setting that. Thus, after giving up this body, one can become liberated and go back to Godhead. Hmm. So then there is description of what did he do. He was very, very simple diet. In this way, he lived in the forest and underwent severe austerity, especially in regards to eating. In other words, overeating is not at all recommended for one who wants to progress in spiritual life. Srila Rupa Goswami also warns that too much eating and too much endeavor, atyahara prayasascha, these are not good, are against the principle of for one who wants to advance in spiritual life. It is also notable that according to Vedic injunction, to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness. So it is not that we are going to a holy place and retire there for rest of our life and do whatever we want. No, the purpose is to fully realize the Lord. That should be the goal. Without a goal, we just would not make tangible uh, benefit of us pilgrimage. Whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion, and to live in a brothel or a drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. This is what it's. However, to live in a temple is to live in a Vaikuntha, which is transcendental to all the modes of material nature. This Krishna consciousness movement affords one the opportunity to live in the temple of the Lord, which is as good as Vaikuntha. Consequently, a Krishna conscious person does not need to go to the forest and artificially try to imitate Maharaj Prithu or the great sages and munis. So, which means in this time and age, that Vanaprastha ashram, one can very safely and successfully practice when one is um, staying in temples, staying in these communities where spiritual practices are very vibrant, and the community is whole and soul serving the Lord. Mm. Srila Rupa Goswami, after retiring from his, the example given here is we should also see Srila Rupa Goswami when he retired from his government minister role from Bengal, he went to Vrindavan. When he went there, he started living under a tree, and it should not be. And then afterwards, there were so many sadhus or so-called sadhus who also left all responsibilities and all duties, and they started coming to live in under the trees to follow or actually to imitate Rupa Goswami. And meanwhile, what happened? They got caught up. They got attracted. They became intoxicated. Many have fallen into material habits, and even in Vrindavan have become victims of illicit sex, gambling, and intoxication. Uh, so that's why Westerners or anyone else can follow in the footsteps of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur by living in a temple, which is transcendental to residence in a forest, and to vow to accept Krishna Prasad and nothing else. Follow the regulative principles and chant 16 rounds daily of Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one's spiritual life will never be disturbed. So this is the formula for Vanaprasthashram. Very powerful, very safe, and very successful. So in this way, following the principles of forest life, living and footsteps of great sages and munis, Pṛthu Maharaj accepted five kinds of heats. So he has accepted, one second, he has accepted these five kinds of heats during summer. You know how hot it is in the summer. Where is this file? Oh. Yeah, it is very, very difficult to face the summer, normal summer. But Pṛthu Maharaj was himself uh, circled. He was sitting in the center where all the five kinds of fires were around him, because that is one thing. They must undergo severe types of austerity in order to become purified from metal contamination. Pancha tapa refers to five kinds of heating process. One is enjoined to sit within a circle of fire, with flames blazing from four sides and the sun blazing directly overhead. This is one kind of panchatapa recommended for austerity. Similarly, in rainy season, yeah, so in this way, yeah, in the winter, different kinds of austerities or inconvenience are invited voluntarily, so that one remembers the Lord always for protection. So that's what is the purpose of undergoing such austerities is to become a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And titiksha yata vag danta. Yeah, here danta means controlling the senses. This is very nice verse. Titikshur yata vag uh, danta means vak means speech. The purpose of underwent all these severe austerities in order to do what? To control his words and senses. And urdhvareta jitanila, to refrain from discharging his semen and to control the life air within his body. As all this he did for satisfaction of what? Acharat tapa uttamam. Why? Ariradhya ishu Krishnam. Simply, he is desiring to satisfy Krishna. Uh, So, with that focus, one should practice the um, Vanapastashram. Uh, in this purport, it said there are many fools who claim that that worship of Krishna began only about 5,000 years ago, after the appearance of Lord Krishna in India. But this is not a fact. Pṛthu Maharaj worshipped Krishna millions of years ago. For Pṛthu happened to be a descendant of the family of Maharaj Dhruva, who reigned for 36,000 years during the Satya Yuga. Anyway, it goes further. We should therefore not be discouraged just because we cannot go to the forest and practice severe austerities. Our life is short, so short that we must strictly adhere to the principles laid down by Vaishnava Acharyas. We don't want to invent, we don't want to create new formulas, we just follow. That is the reason it's very important that daily we hear Bhagavatam. Otherwise, yeah, very easily we can take up our own uh, thoughts, give them more priority, and may mess up our life. And it said there is no need to become despondent. Narottam Das Thakur recommends Anande Bala Hari Bhaja Vrindavana Sri Guru Vrindavane Pade Majaya Mana. For a transcendental, blissful life, chant the Hare Krishna mantra, come worship the holy place of Vrindavan, and always engage in the service of the Lord. of spiritual master of the Vaishnavas. This Krishna consciousness moment is therefore very safe and easy. We have only to execute the order of the Lord and fully surrender unto Him. We have only to execute the order of spiritual master, preach Krishna consciousness, follow in the path of the Vaishnavas. The spiritual master represents both Lord Krishna and the Vaishnavas. Therefore, by following the instructions of the spiritual master and by chanting Hare Krishna, everything will be all right. This is in the purport 7. And then it goes further. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Pṛthu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires. Sometimes we may have this, na, the we know the root cause of our problem is of our suffering is desires. How to overcome this? We cannot control the desires, but we can engage in something higher, which is giving us focus, which is giving us bliss, which is giving us confirmation that we are following the right thing, and that is bhakti. He also practiced breathing exercise to control his mind and senses, and by such control, he became completely free from all the desires of for fruitive activities. In the purport, it is mentioned the purpose of pranayama or mystic yoga who practice in Western countries have no idea of this. The aim of pranayama is not to make the body strong and fit for working hard. Sorry. So, the purpose of pranayama is to make ourselves fit, to be free from desires of fruitive activities and engage in the service of the Lord. The only means of elevation is chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Uh, um, there is a very nice shloka that we read in the last chapter. I mean, in the fourth canto, 22nd chapter, 39. Yat pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmasayam granditam udgratayanti santaha. Means only by worshipping Vasudeva can one become free from the desires of fruitive activities. Outside of worshipping Vasudeva, the yogis and jnanis cannot attain freedom from such desires. Tadvan na rikta matayo yatayopi ruddha srota ganastam aranam bhaja Vasudevam. It is clear. It's one should take shelter of this. One should be to if one want to be successful. And then it goes that he just followed his guru Sanat Kumara. He got the instructions what he has supposed to do. That is to say, he worshipped the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna. uh, Yogam teneva purusham abhajat purusharshabha. Oh, best of the human beings. Rashabha means best. Purusharshabha means best of the human beings. Oh, King Pṛthu, Sanat Kumara is saying, just engage in service, uh, in 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 worshipping the Lord. And then, what is the real proof is said in the next verse. Yeah, is Maharaj Pṛthu practicing the Ashtanga Yoga? Is it different from actually Bhakti Yoga? Here we can see Bhagavad Dharmina Sadho Shraddhaya Yatatha Sada Bhaktir Bhagavati Brahmani Ananya Vishaya Bhavat. Maharaj Pṛthu thus engaged completely in devotional service. Bhagavad Dharmina, hmm, uh, and Shraddhaya with faith, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to the principles, 24 hours daily. Thus, his love and devotion unto the Supreme Lord developed and became Ananya Vishaya Bhavat, unflinching. Ananya Vishaya, fixed firmly without deviation. Uh, and in this connection, Bhagavad Dharminaha is described by Viraraghava Acharya as Nivritti Dharmena. Nivritti, we know Nivritti Marga and Pravritti Marga. Nivritti Marga means to engage in devotional service without any interaction with the material dealings, material activities, uh, which means it cannot be contaminated by material aspirations. Anya bilashita sunam jnana karma bhivanavrutam anukulyena krishnanushilanam bhaktir uttamam. That is nivritti bhakti, nivritti marga, nivritti dharmina, or bhakti. It's mentioned here. It is clear from this verse that Maharaj Pṛthu was never a worshipper of impersonal Brahman, but was at all times a pure devotee of the Lord. Bhagavati Brahmani refers to one who is engaged in devotional service to the personality of Godhead. A devotee's knowledge of impersonal Brahman is automatically revealed, and he is not interested in merging with the Supreme Brahman. So, what was Prithu Maharaj practicing was pure devotional service, no question. And then for that, towards that, there's whole technical details that are given how he did. By regularly discharging devotional service, Prithu Maharaj became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and mental conception. That is the beauty of devotional service. आरुह्य कृष्णेषु परम पदम तथा पतन्ति अधो अनादृत युष्मद् अनुग्रहः. It said the jnanis, the yogis, may rise to the highest position, but because of their lack of devotion unto the Lord, they again fall down into material nature. Therefore, jnana and yoga should not be accepted as the real processes for liberation. Hmm. So, when he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaj Prithu realized Krishna sitting in everyone's heart. Being thus able to get all instructions from the Lord, him, he gave up all practices of yoga and jnana. This is what it said in the previous verse. It is not that the yoga and jnana are ultimate goal. They can only facilitate us to focus on and to be away or to be free from ignorance. Jnana is making us free from ignorance. Yoga is making us disciplined that we can really focus on the Supreme. And after one attains that, one engages purely in devotional service. This is what he attained. And how is it done? Gyanis, and that unless the yogis and jnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Saying so, in the due course, Pṛthu Maharaj has performed the Ashtanga Yoga, and through this process, he realized Krishna in the heart. And then, when the time came, yeah, he has brought the life energy from his body through the yoga process to the between the eyebrows, and finally, from the Sahasrara chakra, he left the body and reached Vaikuntha. Yeah, that's summary. In this way, Pṛthu Maharaj gradually raised his life air and gradually he merged his air of life with totality of air. There is whole this process and he attained success. If one wants to understand the whole process, how it is, yeah, very briefly, these verse number 12 to 19 are describing that. Pṛthu Maharaj then offered the total designation of living entity unto the Supreme Controller. Being released from all the designations by which the living entity becomes entrapped, he became free by knowledge, huh? This is knowledge, and renunciation, yoga, and by spiritual force of his devotional service. In this way, being situated in his original constitutional position of Krishna consciousness, he gave up his body as Prabhu and controller of senses. So, there is this purport number 18. If one want to know, there is an explanation given who is Prabhu. Prabhu is one who is completely in devotional service. Let me quickly read for you. Mm. In this words, in this verse, the word Prabhu is also significant. As stated before, when one is completely self-realized and acts according to that position, he can be called Prabhu. The spiritual master is addressed as Prabhupada, means he is not just Prabhu, he is also already anyway self-realized, but also he is given the position of, indicates that he is given the position of Prabhu or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, for he acts on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Unless one is a Prabhu or controller of the senses, he cannot he cannot act as a spiritual master who is authorized by the Supreme Prabhu or Krishna. In this verse, praising the spiritual master, Srila Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur writes, Sakshat Dharitvena Samasta Shastra Uktastatha bhāvayata eva shabdihi. So just wanted to mention who is when we say Prabhupada, what does that mean? Prabhupada means is as good as the Supreme Lord, or a Prabhu or a person who is given such a position that he can be served as good as the Lord. He is considered to be the spiritual master, to be considered as Prabhupada. And similarly, in the lines of husband, Queen Archie. Yeah, I'll conclude with these two verses, or even we can catch up on this tomorrow. Just checking, maybe 2 minutes. Let's go on. Um, his wife played an exemplary role here. How? Because she followed her husband into the forest. Since she was a queen, her body was delicate, and but still she went. In this purport, it's mentioned the goddess of fortune, Mother Sita, followed her husband Ramachandra when he went to the forest. Lord Ramachandra went to the forest in compliance with the order of his father, Maharaj Dashrath, but Mother Sita was not so ordered. Nonetheless, she voluntarily accepted the path of her husband. Similarly, Gandhari, the wife of Dhritarashtra, also followed her husband into the forest. Being the wives of great personalities like Pṛthu, Lord Ramachandra, and Dhritarashtra, these were ideal chaste women. Such queens also instructed the general people by showing them how to become a chaste wife and follow the husband in every stage of life. When the husband is king, she sits beside him as a queen, and when he goes to the forest, she also follows, despite having to tolerate all kinds of difficulties in living in the forest. Therefore, it is said here, Atad Arha, that although she did not want to touch her feet to the ground, she nonetheless accepted all the difficulties when she went to the forest with her husband. Hmm. In fact, in the next verse it says, although she was not accustomed to such difficulties, Queen Archie followed her husband in regulative principles of living in the forest like great sages. She lay down on the ground and ate only fruits, flowers, and leaves, and because she was not fit for these activities, she became frail and thin. Yet, because of the pleasure she derived in serving her husband, she did not feel any difficulties. Okay, and what does that mean? It's in the purport. Yeah, this is the last purport we will go through, where it said the word Bhartur Vrata Dharma Nishtaya indicates that a woman's duty or religious principle is to serve her husband in all conditions. Huh? Not in favorable condition, not in unfavorable, but in all conditions. In Vedic civilization, a man is taught from the beginning of his life to become a brahmachari, then an ideal grihastha, then vanaprastha, then sannyas. And the wife is taught just to follow the husband strictly in all conditions of life. After the period of brahmacharya, a man accepts a household life, and a woman is also taught by her parents to be a chaste wife. Thus, when a girl and a boy are united, both are trained for a life dedicated to a higher purpose. So, which is missing? The whole this learning, this whole system is somehow messed up. That's why we have problems. The boy is trained to execute his duty in accordance with his higher purpose of life, and the girl is trained to follow him. That is her higher purpose. The chaste wife's duty is to keep her husband pleased in household life in all respects. And when the husband retires from family life, she is to go to the forest and adopt the life of Vanaprastha or Vanavasi. At that time, the wife is to follow her husband and take care of him, just as she took care of him in the householder life. But when the husband takes the renounced order of life named sannyas, the wife is to retire home and become a saintly woman, setting an example for her children and daughters-in-law and showing them how to live a life of austerity. This is what happens when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he took sannyas at the age of 16, and at that time he had already married Vishnu Priya, Mother Vishnu Priya, Vishnu Priya Devi. Although only 16 years old he did, and then what happened? She chanted her beads when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left. She chanted on her beads, and after finishing one round, she collected one grain of rice. In this way, as many rounds as she chanted, she would receive the same number of rice grains and then cook them and so take prasad. This is austerity. Even today in India, widows or women whose husbands have taken sannyas follow the principles of austerity even though they live with their children. And here, this is what we can see Archie. Pṛthu Maharaj's wife was steadily determined to execute the duty of a wife. And while her husband was in the forest, she followed him in eating only fruits and leaves and lying down on the ground. Since a woman's body, okay, this is further said. Okay, although Queen Archie became very thin from living in the forest according to the regulated principles, she was not unhappy, for she was enjoying the honor of serving her husband. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Let's stop here and we continue the remaining chapter tomorrow. Yes. Thank you so much. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patidanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If someone have any questions or anything, you can reach out to me. Yeah. Anytime. Hare Krishna.